So, has everyone been enjoying Grand Theft Auto 5? Cause I sure haven't. Dogs ate all of my video game money, but after playing a few hours of a friend's GTA 5, it got me in the mood to play some GTA 4, and God, it was so much more worse than I remember. Until I started modding it. That's what saved the game. Like, I don't think I'll really be rustling anyone's feathers by saying that the legacy of GTA 4 has kinda been hampered by some questionable design decisions that haven't really aged well. Actually, I couldn't stand the first few hours of my replay until I slid in a few files that changed a few things and also enforced some self-imposed challenges of my own, and suddenly I was actually having fun. Like, actual, real, innocent, enjoyable, happy fun. The kind of stuff that vanilla GTA 4 just can't do. And the importance of being able to turn something that I did not find fun into something that I did find fun is the point of this video. For a lot of PC games, mod support is a huge deal breaker. It's incredibly important for sustaining the long-term shelf life of a product that would have otherwise faded away after a few years. But even though there aren't a lot of cons to modding if you are weighing the benefits and the drawbacks of including it, you can still see a lot of disdain for it in the world, especially among the franchises that rely on yearly installments and cheap DLC. But I really think that developers have more to gain than they have to lose from this stuff. 3 years after launch, DayZ came out, and it increased sales volume for Arma 2 tenfold. It was so popular that they put a sticker for it right there on the box. 5 years after launch, you still regularly see GTA 4 top the Steam charts. Pretty much every Elder Scrolls game has had extensive mod support, and not so coincidentally, they also tend to enjoy high long-term sales. Most games make most of their revenue in their first few weeks after launch, but you see these games have sales spikes years after launch. Hell, it'll even help some games just get right off the ground in the first place. How many copies of the PC version of Dark Souls do you honestly think they would have sold if it wasn't for the DS fix? You also have the rare chance of mods starting entire new IPs of their own. Stuff like Counter-Strike and Natural Selection and even Chivalry all began as mods. We're about to see commercial releases of DayZ and Black Mesa because of mods! Mods enable amateurs to do something creative and constructive with their free time, something that could eventually lead into an actual gainful employment doing something they love, and who would want to take that away? The guy who made Fall Scar got a job at Bungie, Oskiro of Oskiro's Oblivion Overhaul got a job at Obsidian, and Ed McMillan just now hired a modder to make a new Binding of Isaac game. Modding is like free game development. For most of us, it's the closest we'll actually get to making games of our own. It gives kids the resources to foster an interest in making games, and for professionals, it's a tangible way to build their skills and make more of a portfolio. You can actually make a career path out of this stuff. Lots of people have. Plus, just tapping into some kind of creative drive for the player to express themselves is a lucrative investment across all games in general. That's what makes games special. Game players have a need to engage with the entertainment they're consuming. They need to put themselves into the game in some shape, form, or capacity. When you look at some of the most successful games of all time, you'll find that they all give the player a lot of space for creative possibilities. Whether it's from open-ended play systems deliberately designed for creative player expression, or from simply having a strong suite of mod tools. Mod support is simply a utilitarian and practical way of embracing one of the most valuable tools a game designer can use: player expression. With the way things are going these days, it's hard to imagine why any big games would release without mod support, but I can kind of understand why they do that. It's a lot of extra effort. Implementing it is a challenge of project direction. You have to build your game in a modular way, make it very data-driven, and then stick to a strict methodology about how you organize all that data. The variables, the stats, and the dice rolls behind the mechanics of your game have to be soft-coded into readable, moddable text files, and content has to be archived into familiar formats. But honestly, that just sounds like good advice for any kind of project. Keeping things readable and tweakable helps out both developers and the users. Like, take a look at GTA 4 and you can see how they deliberately soft-coded the core functions of the game into something that is very easily changed. It's one thing to bake the gameplay straight into the game's source code, but here you have a bunch of separate external files with a whole lot of changeable variables in them that all reference stuff in the source code. There's actually one XML file that lists out the stats for every weapon in the game, and if you want to change their speed, damage, or accuracy, you just change the corresponding numbers in the file. It's the same deal with car physics, and someone made a super easy archive editor for replacing individual textures, sounds, and even the in-game websites.
Oh, I should not have had that last box of donuts! What the hell is this? I ain't no action hero!
And the result is a product that has more value than what's actually being sold on the shelf. The possibilities are endless, and I've found that generally you can be sure that any PC game with an interested enough community is going to gain from that in two very different but equally important ways. First is by adding or fixing features that should have been properly implemented in the first place, which is something that developers can and totally should do. Yeah, I'm talking about Dark Souls. Second is by doing something that the developer can't do, which is individually cater the game to each and every customer's specific tastes. I want to be hungry. There's so much food in these games. Why is my guy never hungry for it? In every Elder Scrolls game, I always like to play with some kind of survival mod. I, for whatever my opinions were, think that they add a whole lot to the game, because these games already have so much edible food lying around, it just seems to make sense to incorporate all that clutter into a more important mechanic. I don't know, it's the weirdest thing, and I can't really fault them for not including it, but it makes the game at least more fun for me, and my god, I love that I can do that. Having your game personally cater itself to you as an individual is the kind of thing that increases the value of your purchase 100 times over. Once you have everything working out just the way you like it, it can be so much more meaningful and enjoyable than what you had when you started. I thought New Vegas was a great game by its own right, but once I had my own particular setup of survival mods in there, it suddenly turned into what might be my favorite game of this whole generation. I couldn't really get into Empire or Total War, but the Darth mod turned the game into a beautiful and demanding treat that had me hooked for weeks. It might have been the most fun I ever had playing a single-player strategy game. And as it turns out, the only things keeping me from really enjoying GTA 4 was the friction on the car handling and a good difficulty spike for the gunplay. And then occasionally, very rarely, you just might see a game you previously purchased give birth to an entirely new game of its own. Some total conversion mods out there come awfully close to meeting the bar of quality of a real commercial release. It's rare, but it does happen sometimes, and when it does, there's no way not to feel grateful about that. So despite increasing long-term sales and bringing in new talent and increasing value for the consumer and encouraging a more modular development process, modding is not something that the industry seems to want to support. The big companies don't want to enable mods for franchises that they expect to get yearly sequels or voluminous amounts of cheap DLC out of. Maybe this is why you see something like Grand Theft Auto totally embrace the possibilities of mods, while Saints Row does not. Here at Bunny Hop, we're all about naming and shaming, and you know, I like Anthony Birch. I like Hop, and it's really cool that it went from a wacky casual series of web videos into actual games writing, but this is not cool. I mean, you can argue all you want that this whole game and its company are just all about wacky, unconventional, casual fun, but come on. The sheer quality of the work they're displaying here should be speaking for itself. God, I remember being 15 years old and making some stupid Jedi skins based off Neo and the Dude, and that was all wacky, unconventional fun that didn't cost anyone a dime. Saints Row is an open-ended and offbeat, player-driven sandbox that's all about tapping into creative player expression, and it would be ripe grounds for modding if there was better support for it. If that were the case, I'd bet that the same kind of content you get out of the Hey Ash, What You Playin' pack would probably be on the non-existent Saints Row Nexus long ago. But since the game doesn't have real feasible tools and a workable file structure, what the community has instead just doesn't really compare. I'm coming into this issue from the standpoint of a PC gamer. You can't have mods on consoles, so whatever non-existent Saints Row Nexus that isn't on the PC definitely wouldn't be on consoles either. But the baseline quality of some of this paid DLC stuff is at or below the line set by free player-created content on the PC. And it's not like modding is under attack or going away. The Skyrim, Arma, and Civ 5 scenes are still going strong, and a crazy multiplayer mod for Just Cause 2 recently came out, so it's not going away, but a lot of companies out there do have an incentive for it to go away. The very existence of that Hey Ash pack exposes a real reason to discourage modding, and that reason is corporate greed. The incentive to support modding is the possibility of long-term sales, and the investment involves developing tools and fostering a community for it. So, how can a developer expect to invest in the possibility of someone else producing long-term sales when they can make similar content of their own and prolong their own sales off it? I guess it might work if there really are people out there that pay $2 for poorly made skins based off pre-existing internet personalities, but for now, I can only hope that they're not fooling anybody, and that those people are gonna get sick of buying that stuff eventually. The current state of the industry paints an uncertain future for modding, but developers can reap a lot of benefits from it if they embrace it. And after seeing so many otherwise troubled games actually get saved by the modding community rather than by the developers, I highly encourage everyone to support the modding communities even further. After all, developers aren't perfect, and we're all in this together. And when we all work together, we can create wonderful things.